Hi, I'm reading a portion from the novel Still Life with Insects. The protagonist in this novel is an amateur entomologist by the name of Elwin Farmer. This novel is interesting because it's written using 17 of Elwin Farmer's journal entries on his insect sightings. Through these 17 journal entries, the novel lays bare the suffering and joy of one man's life, from his maturity in the post-war years to very old age in the 1980s. The portion I'm reading today is taken from the journal entry dated December 1973. By this time, the protagonist, Elwin Farmer, was already a grandfather. My wife was asleep in her granddaughter's room. Our granddaughter slept in the study. We were an inconvenience to this family now. Once we had been almost indispensable. Other noises came from the family room downstairs, where my son and daughter-in-law sat watching television. I found myself laughing along whenever my son did, infected by what he found funny, even at this distance. Stephen, my grandson, burst out of his bedroom and shouted down the back stairs, "Will you quit having so much fun with the television? I'm in agony." The family room door opened and Henry, my son, and Stephen's father arrived at the foot of the stairs. He laughed up, quoting something from King Lear, which Stephen was writing his essay about. Stephen hissed and rushed back into his room, slamming the door. I came out of hiding and saw Henry in an odd posture, head cocked to one side, but a smile frozen on his face. "Do you want me to interfere?" I asked. No, the poor boy needs to be left alone." Henry returned to the family room, gently closing the door, and immediately barked at something on the television. The bark was followed by a series of high-rolling vowels. After a hesitant knock, I asked, "Stephen?" "What?" the boy said in a flat voice. "Who is it? Go away." He opened the door. "Oh, Elwin, it's you." We stood for a moment, staring directly into each other's eyes. Stevens displayed a frightening lack of focus. Then he growled, "I'm in an ugly mood," and shuffled to his desk in slippers worn away at the heels. Something to buy him for Christmas, I noted. The boy turned over every sheet of paper on the desk, so that the sides with writing lay face down. When Stephen saw how obvious this gesture had been, he went red and dropped with a thud into his chair. His huge bush of hair rustled over his shoulders. "I was just thinking about your essay," I said. "But I had been doing no such thing. I only wanted the boys' company, when it was plain Stephen least needed an old fool puttering around his room. My thoughts panicked. I tried to remember something, anything, about King Lear. "We call it a paper nowadays, Grandpa," Stephen said. "Essay is kind of an old-fashioned word. Besides, that makes it sound even harder to do." I knew I should leave. The shoulders of my grandson vibrated as he fussed with pens, paper, books on his desk. As he pushed the typewriter back an inch, then pulled it forward a fraction of an inch. But an invisible force held me in the room. Not simply the inertia of love or age. In my old age, my precarious sense of stability seemed to depend on understanding children at their own level, which I could never do when I was a younger man, when my own two sons were underfoot. "Let me see, Lear," I said. Stephen stood up and said, "Grandpa," but I could not stop myself. "If I remember correctly," I said, "there are 3 little girls and a question of who loves Grandpa Lear most." Stephen slumped onto his cluttered couch. "Elvin," he said, but undisguised tenderness now trembled in his voice. Stephen had not been listening. However, his glance jerking from fingernails to the bright orange pen stuck between couch cushions to the tip of his shirt collar darkened by flipping between his thumb and forefinger thousands of times. "I don't know why I'm kidding myself," Stephen said. "My father teaches philosophy, but I haven't got a thought in my brain. I'm not even sure I have a brain." Stephen giggled, and out of relief I joined him with a chuckle, clutching the bed below to make sure it lay where I expected to sit. But Stephen took offense at some deeply personal, self-inflicted insult and snapped his fingers savagely, which arrested me halfway down to the bed. "I'm serious," he said. "You all think. I know you do. Humphrey thinks and talks at the same time. It's amazing. I've seen him do it every day of my life, even under pressure at debate tournaments. Just like that. Words gush out which show he has already thought out at least a few of the ideas he spouts. In arguments, he just demolishes anyone, like me, who is hearing his own words for the first time when they tumble out. Dad thinks without talking, but you can tell he's been thinking about you and actually planned a whole elaborate response to something you said weeks ago." Stephen took a breath, and I was caught thinking myself, losing my chance to interject kind, reassuring words. "And you, Grandpa," Stephen continued, "you can tell these long, elaborate stories about your life or about science and beetles, and you always have a point in mind. I may get lost sometimes, just drift pleasantly along with your voice, but at the end, every time, there it is, a reason for telling the story, a point, a punchline. I can't do any of that. I look inside myself when I'm talking, like right now, and all I see are words. This is unusual, you know, me talking. Most of the time I want to say something and the words just aren't there, like a comic strip character before the words are put in the balloon. I get this dumb look. My friends stare at me, their lips curling to the left, unconsciously imitating the way I talk out of the side of my mouth. "Grandpa," Henry said on the stairs, "you're not bothering Stephen, are you?" Stephen stood up again, changed in an instant to the suddenly silent boy he was moments before. He returned to his desk chair and fell into it, back to his audience. "Grandpa," Henry said, "I think we should leave Stephen alone." But he stayed on the threshold of the door. The house settled along several of its fault lines. "So, how's it coming?" he asked Stephen, who groaned. "Did you think about limiting the topic to Edmund, say, or Edgar? You liked those characters." Stephen swiveled around in his chair, a rush of words coming out. "I can think all I want. Whatever I write comes out no more than a page long. I need 5 pages. Can't you write the damn thing for me?" "I'll flunk if I wrote it," Henry laughed. "Don't say that," Stephen shrieked. "If you flunk, how can I conceivably pass?" "Look, Stephen," Henry said, his lips hardening. "How many times have you read the play?" "Once," Stephen whispered. "That's not enough." "I get hives when I read too much," Stephen said. Tears came to his eyes. "I can't do it again." "You don't have to read the whole thing, damn it," Henry said. "Only the parts you're writing about." "All right," Stephen shouted. He jumped to his feet. "Party's over! Everybody out, out, out!" That was a portion from the novel, Still Live with Insects. If you want the full story of the protagonist, Elwin Farmer, do get hold of the book and read it.